access. Welcome, Nancy. The room is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I am going to pull up some slides, and like Rita shared, the slides will be available to you. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself. So I work with businesses of all types, businesses that are experiencing problems or businesses that want to grow or just want to make things better and just make the workplace a better place so that everybody's happy at work. So everything I do is based on relationships and helping people to work well together. Sorry, somehow I'm a little bit sidetracked this morning. I'm not in my normal space. Maybe that's what it is. I'm going to talk to you today about a lot of different pieces of relationship, build some business development into there, and build obviously the marketing component. But without that business development piece, it's hard to do the marketing component. And one of the things that I find when I'm talking to not-for-profits is that there hasn't been a lot of time spent on thinking about what the business is, what we do, why we do it, who we're supposed to do it for. And if you haven't done any of those pieces, then it's really hard to figure out how am I going to market. And of course, today the type of marketing that we're going to talk about is relationship marketing. So it's not something that you can really pay somebody else to do for you. It's something that you have to come forward and be your authentic self and be out there in the environment to let people see who you are, what you do, and where you're going and why they should be interested in what it is that you do. So I would encourage you to ask your questions at any time. Carrie will be looking at those chat questions and will let me know at any point if there are any questions. So don't feel like you have to hold your questions to the end. And one thing I always like to share with participants is because this is a presentation, it's not intended to be a presentation. It's intended to be what you guys need to talk about. So if I'm going in a direction and you think, oh, she's not getting to where I want her to go, and you ask the question, I will take us to where you want to go. And with that, I'd like to say that I may skip a couple of slides, go back a couple of slides, backwards and forwards, because I want this to be a conversation between us. I want to build a sense of relationship with you as we develop this this conversation that we're going to have today, so that you leave here today feeling like, yeah, I've got some great ideas. I know what I need to do to build the relationships with the people I want to build relationships with, so that I can attract them to the services that I have to offer. So thank you very much for putting your names and locations. I always like to have a look at that as people are coming in, because it helps me to have a little bit of an idea of where you're from and where I need to take the conversations to make sure that it's engaging for you. Hey, so let's start with what is relationship marketing? Well, it really is a different type of marketing. That it's not about flyers. It's not about it's not even about social media, even though we think, you know, oh yeah, go on social media and build relationships. No, it's much more than that. It's going back to the fundamental idea of what relationships are, and getting out there and actually being where people are, meeting those people, seeing those people, and understanding who they are. So we don't focus on one-time sales. We focus on, how do I build relationships with people out there so that not only will they want to continue receiving my services or products, whatever it is that I do in my business, but that they will tell other people, hey, this is a great place to go and get some support around some educational pieces, and that little piece of building relationships that I do kind of grows and grows and grows. And I hope I don't know if you guys can still see me at the same time as my slides, but I do a lot of talking with my hands. It's part of who I am, I think, and part of building those relationships. I feel there's a lot of that nonverbal that's very important in the building relationships. So I'm actually going to ask the question, can you give me in the chat feature, actually not in the chat feature, in the reactions feature, can you just give me a sense that you can still see me while we are talking? Can you give me some kind of a thumbs up? I think there's a thumbs up in there. There we go. Good. Okay, great. Okay, let me just change this so that I can, there we go. Couldn't see my slides anymore. Okay, so relationship marketing is really that. It's not marketing where you hire a marketing consultant, you make a quick plan and they go off and do all your marketing for you. It is you getting out there and being where people are. Using the chat feature now, I'm going to ask you guys to share your ideas about how do you build relationships. So I'm going to pull the chat feature open and just go ahead and share for me. They don't have to be work relationships, any types of relationships. What are the things that you feel need to happen so that you can build relationships with people? In-person connections, checking in. Ooh, good. They're going nice and quickly after back. Provide value. Absolutely. Phone calls, one-on-one meetings when possible. Be a good listener. Very good. Communication. And with that, two-way communication, not just talking, but listening as well is a big part of building relationships. Building trust with your learners. Absolutely. Listening and communication, keeping in touch with those I care about, being friendly, building trust. Visit, supportive collaboration. Ask people about themselves, hobbies and such. Very nice. Spending time with others, giving to others, helping others. Send a resource periodically. Nice. I like that. Sharing a coffee or a pizza. Humor. Yes. Checking in, sharing, active listening, communication, being present, collaboration, understanding your audience and be prepared to work together. We're going to talk a lot today about understanding your audience, because that's a big part of thinking about who do I want to influence and in what ways do I want to influence them. Deliver positive results for the program participants. Absolutely. Let your program speak for itself and share those pieces of information with people. And more importantly, let others share those pieces of information with people who are important to them. Create a common interest, sharing something I think they'll like, TV recommendations, etc., giving them the services they need, impactful communications. Great, great stuff. I am just going to let you know that at the end of the presentation, if you wanted to download the chat features because you want to see what other people said as suggestions, as we're saying our goodbyes on the right-hand side, if you open the chat on the right-hand side at the bottom, it'll say save, and you can go ahead and click those wonderful recommendations there. So thank you very much. That was some really good information sharing. And yeah, you're right. You got to be out there. You got to be available for people to hear, and not only do you want to be heard, but you want to give people a lot of opportunity to share with you. So one of the things that I'm doing when I'm doing the relationship marketing part of my business is I go to networking events and I ask people to share with me what's going on in your business. I don't go ahead and say, oh, this is what I do and here's what I can sell you, and I do presentations and I do training. I say, what's going on in your business? What challenges do you have? And I let people talk about what's going on for them. And then I say, I think to myself, is there any way that I could help with any of the challenges that the people are experiencing? And I say, I have a couple of ideas to share with you. What do you think? Are you open to hearing of a couple of ideas that might help with those challenges? And then we build a relationship from there. So, and in the service market, very important for this to be a very soft sell when you're out there doing relationship marketing. And a lot of times people will think, well, we sell a service. How can I do a taste test sample? But I want you to think of the fact that you really can do a taste test sample. Like when we all go to Costco and we're like walking down the aisles and they're like, hey, would you like to try one of these? You can do those kinds of things. And I want you to think about, as we're talking about through the presentation today, what taste test options can you guys give in terms of the services that you offer, so that people get a sense of, this is what it's like. Being able to share testimonials sometimes is helpful, but also being able to say, hey, you know what, here's a little snippet of, the kind of content that we offer, or, here's the way we work in our center. Here's how it goes, and share with them the activities that happen and what they can expect when they actually get there. So it's very much like taste these crackers, buy a box of crackers, get a taste of our services, and then come and get some of our services. So some excellent ideas around how to build relationships there. I wanted to make reference to the marketing checklist that was shared with you at the presentation. I believe the last presentation was in June, and I believe Carrie will be sending that out as well again, in case you haven't kept it or in case you weren't at that presentation. What I did was go through that marketing checklist and say, okay, which ones of those pieces tend to refer to relationship marketing? And there weren't only 6. There was that, those of you who were there know that there was a number of pages to that marketing checklist. But I kind of took categories of things and put them up. So engaging learners, and that's something that we saw people share in the last question when I asked, how do you build relationship? Celebrating successes was on that list. So whether it's having a pizza together, or whether it's giving a card, or whether it's having a little bit of a celebration for people who've achieved milestones, whatever it is that you do, celebrating the successes, make it that those people will want to talk about the organization and the wonderful things that they felt they got from going to the organization. Find win-win with partners. So when you're going out and connecting with people, you're not necessarily only going out and connecting with your learners or only connecting with your potential learners. You also need to connect with your partners. And it's easy to go out and just think of what you want to ask partners for. Oh, please refer to me, please send me this information. But it's much better and much more likely to achieve something when you can say to a partner, here's what I have to offer the people who come to your organization. What do you think would be helpful? And how can we make this happen so that your clients, the people who attend your services, can benefit from what we have to offer them? And when you build those win-win with partners, you get a lot more buy-in and you achieve a lot better things, not only for your learners, but for the participants of whatever organizations or whatever partners are out there. Part of what I saw was important in what you wanted me to talk, or what I was asked to talk about today, was the fact that you have recognized, I guess, throughout Ontario, that there is an underrepresentation of certain groups in your programs, and that you really want to reach out to those underrepresented learners. And one of the things that you need to do there in terms of being able to attract those underrepresented learners is to learn a little bit more about them. Who are they? What are their needs? What are their wants? Where are they? And if I want to build a relationship with them, what do I need to know about them? And what do I need to be able to share about me? And how much do I want to share about me? And how much do I want to learn about them? Because those are all things that are different in different groups of people. And so if you're thinking about your underrepresented groups, really think about spending some time putting in your marketing plan the idea of, I need to go and research whatever group it is that I want to attract, and find out what benefits my programs can bring to those places or to those people. Host community events. I'm sure that's something that you're already doing. This is an example, obviously, of a community event, and you put this out, I'm sure, to a lot of different people, but going out and hosting things that are related to what you do, but not a hard sell, again, a soft sell. So being able to, be out there and host a barbecue that just, talks about literacy, or talks about the importance of being able to have access to services such as yours. And attend community events. So pay attention to what is going on in your community, and particularly around your underrepresented groups, and think, how can I already be where those people are and participate in whatever it is going on, show people a little bit about who I am and what my organization is. So attend those community events. So if you're thinking about the relationship marketing and you're looking at that checklist that was presented last session, then really go back and look at these different areas and think of where you can go with that. Okay, so relationship marketing roadmap. Well, before I can market to anybody, I need to think about, who can I market to? So step one, who are they? Just what we were talking about a moment ago, the people that you want to attract. You need to back up one step and say, who is it that I want to attract, and why do I want to attract them? We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Think about, how could they benefit? What is it that you can give them that would be helpful to them? People always get engaged in things, thinking about, what's in it for me. Engage with partners, be present, get out there, be where people are. And then while you are there, build relationships. So you want to think about, how how do I build relationships when I'm out there rather than how do I sell what I have to offer? So when you are putting together flyers and that, you're really thinking marketing, I want to get people in the door. When you're doing relationship marketing, it's a little bit broader. You don't get clients or customers as quickly with relationship marketing, but you get longer term benefits from what it is that you are doing with that relationship piece. So you're not going out there and say, okay, sign here on the dotted line right now, come to this particular conference. You're just being out there and being general about the things that you have to offer and helping people get to know you. You might be handing out a pamphlet or two, but it's not necessarily important. You just want them to get to know, hey, we're available and this is what we do, and not feel pushy in any kind of way. Okay, so this is what's called a business model canvas. So again, I said when I'm talking to not-for-profits, I recognize that not-for-profits don't spend any time usually, except at the executive level. And even then, it's not really that much time thinking about what is our business plan. But in the private sector, we spend a lot of time thinking about what is our business plan. And this is a one-page overview of the important things to think about in a business plan. And it's meant to be something that you fill out. So I do encourage you to print this out, or you can type business model canvas into Google and find other different representations of this, some which you'll be able to fill in directly online. But I want you to be able to think about all of these different pieces. So I want you to see in the blue, it talks about customer relationships. I want you to see in the light blue, it talks about key partners, but it also talks about a lot of other things like value proposition. And I can't do anything to any of these pieces before I consider what is that value proposition? What do I have to offer? And the customer segments, that is the group of potential customers, clients, learners, however you want to, whatever words you want to use in your field that I'm going to impact. So I would actually like you to think about potentially taking this slide and actually looking at it based customer segment by customer segment, because I think particularly if you're looking at attracting groups, the value that you offer them may be very different for one group than another group, even though you're offering the exact same services. The key activities that you might do, the key partners that you might engage for that particular customer segment, the ways that you will work at building relationships, and the value that they will actually get from your service may be very different. So as I was preparing the presentation, Rita and I had a quick conversation about just the differences in different cultures and how we think about education and how we think about who needs to get education and what that purpose of education is. So, you know, I know from the government perspective around your organizations, it is very, the idea is, you know, you're going to take these and you're going to get prepared to go to post-secondary, and you're going to get the, you know, the dream job of your life, or you're going to get the job that allows you to provide for your family. But in some cultures, that idea of going to post-secondary, particularly for women, is different. And that idea of, you know, get the perfect job and the perfect money may be very different. We may be thinking something about, hey, you know what, this gives you the opportunity. If I think of, you know, some moms who, you know, may not have a desire to go to post-secondary education and may think, you know, well, why would I go there? It might be, you might be marketing something as simple as come and get support here, so that when your kids come home and they have problems with their homework, you can help them. And that may be what that segment of the population is looking for. So I want you to really think about, you know, who are those different customers that you want to attract? Who do you want to have coming to your center, so that when you're thinking about what do I have to offer them and what am I going to tell them is the value that I can give them fits with who they are. And, you know, I gave a couple of examples there that are kind of a little bit stereotypical. I want you to be careful. I want you to go and read, and I want you to read kind of about those categories, but I want you to think that those categories are stereotypical. And that's why when I'm approaching people that I want to talk to about my business, I ask them a lot of questions, so that when if I were in your shoes, asking some questions about, you know, what do you do? What are some of the things that are important? How many kids do you have? What are some of the things that you're hoping to achieve? What are some of the challenges that you experience? And that would help me get a sense of what challenges are they experiencing that I can help that my center can help them overcome. And then that's how I would word the value proposition to those particular people that I'm talking about, so that they really get a sense that I'm not trying to push them. I'm not trying to sell them something that I feel they should want when they don't want it. That I'm trying to give them whatever tools I have in my toolbox that I think may help them to live the best life that they want to live, regardless of what that looks like. Okay, a couple of things that I just want to mention, some specifics around that end. And I think I already said a lot of that, and that happens. I put a lot of slides together and then I think to myself, oh, why did I add that slide there? So just one comment, that all of those pieces obviously work together, that you need to be able to think of one is going to impact the other and vice versa. So taking your time and thinking, yeah, I might need to fill that out a couple of times if I'm doing a couple of customer segments. This is a canvas, I guess, that helps you to really think through the comparison, or the pieces between what do I have to offer and what does my customer want, or what are the potential learner out there want. So just allows you to go a little bit deeper into thinking about who is that particular underrepresented group that I might be trying to attract to come and get services at my business, and thinking about, what are their wants, what are their needs, and importantly, what are their fears, what is challenging them, what will they need to know about my services so that they can actually say, yeah, I feel comfortable going there, I know what I'm going to get, I know what it's going to be like when I get there. And then going backwards and thinking about, okay, your product, in this case, your product is a service. What is your service? What are the benefits of your services? What are the features of your services, and what experiences do you have? And looking for how you can connect those with their wants, their needs, and overcoming some of their fears. So again, this is one that I would recommend that you print as you're doing some of your planning for your relationship marketing, and think about, and I would do one for every customer group or every client group that you are looking at trying to attract to your center. And you can Google value proposition canvas, and again, find lots that don't have all those little sticky notes in them that you can actually write in. Key partners. So I am going to get you to do a little bit of thinking here and open up your chat and tell me, who do you think some of your key partners are or may need to be in order for you to be able to attract some of the underrepresented groups. So you don't have to think just about the underrepresented groups. You can talk about the key partners you have now, but key partners you also think that you will need to engage as you expand on your relationship marketing. So I'm just going to open the chat so I can follow along. Oh, I opened participants instead of chat. There we go. Oh my, did I lose everybody and put everybody to sleep?
It's still disabled.
The chat is disabled?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Can somebody enable the chat? I don't know how it got disabled. Okay, while we're waiting, go ahead and share out loud if you have some ideas.
Ontario Works or Ontario Disability Support.
Hey,
Local community social service agencies like food banks and shelters.
food banks and shelters.
Other literacy programs within your community.
Other literacy programs, yes. Different organizations have their own literacy programs within them. So if you can partner in some ways, excellent.
Employment Ontario.
Employment Ontario. Yes, Rita, I can see your message. There we go. Employers, I like it. Testing chat. Immigration and refugees, very important in our Canadian world recently. Not sure what CALARs are, but hopefully most of you know. Libraries, local media. Currently, employment services struggling to get in with OW, community living, an excellent partner, employment centers, language assessment referral systems, local city councilors, interesting. Contact North, library, immigration partnerships, health units. Yeah. So one of the things I want to add here is that, all of you have talked about very formal organizations, organizations that are particularly funded by the government. But don't forget about social groups in your community. Get out there. I'm thinking, and one of them that I'm sure you probably all go to that just hasn't come up is the idea of, welcome to, we have a welcome to Timmins night. I'm sure many other places have that. Welcome to our community. Yes, church groups and social organizations. So thinking about what else is out there? What are some social organizations? And don't just limit yourself to those kinds of things either. Get out to different school events, get out to different sporting events, go where there are other fundraising events. Again, not for the purpose of, hey, I want to set up a booth and everybody's going to come and see me and I'm going to steal the limelight of the show, but just get out there and say, you know what? I know that there are probably going to be people out here that I can help. So I'm going to be present when there are different activities going on in my community. And my goal is just to chit chat with people and share different information. Women's groups, absolutely. Chambers of Commerce, I don't know, nobody seemed to have mentioned that. BIA is very similar to Chambers of Commerce. So yeah, get out there as well. Any kind of event that's planned in your community is a great event to get out to and think about, who are the people that I might meet there, and then build those relationships with different organizations moving forward after you've met some of the people. That's a great way to build relationships with an organization. Sometimes when you reach out to an organization and you say, hey, organizational such and such, I'm from literacy and here's the services that we offer and I'd like to partner with you, and you hear nothing. But if you get out there to an event and you start talking to somebody who works at whatever particular organization and you build a little bit of relationship with them, and then you say, hey, you know what, I wonder if we could sit down and have a little chat at some point, because I think some of the services that we offer might be helpful to your clients, and maybe we can work together to ensure that your clients get the best services that we have to offer. Good. Okay, I'm going to click forward again. I would like to show you a little bit of a video, so I'm going to have to stop sharing. I'm going to go back to sharing and open the video. I've got to click share sound, and here is the video that I want to show you. And everybody just give a thumbs up to show that they can actually see the video. Good, I see a couple of thumbs up, good. I'm going to make it full screen and I'm going to share.
There's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally.
Okay, so let me just stop sharing here. Okay, stop share. There we go. Okay, so I want to take a minute and just kind of paraphrase some of the things that Simon Sinek just shared with us. He's one of my favorite speakers. You will get the link to that video so that you can watch the whole thing. He has some wonderful books if you are interested in doing more understanding of his why. But this is something else that we don't do in a lot of businesses, regardless of whether it's profit or not for profit. One of the things that we don't do is think about, why do I do what I do? And think of different networking opportunities that you've had where you're out and you're talking to somebody and they talk to you from the what, how, and probably never get to the why. That's where I feel like, oh, this person's trying to sell me something. And oh, I see somebody over there that might be more interesting to talk to, and whoop, I'm gone. But when somebody shares with me something about the why, something about that passion, even if the what maybe is not all that interesting to me, the why connects with me, I still want to know more about it. And I might not be ready to buy it, though I might be ready to buy it by the end of our conversation. I might know somebody else who might be really interested in that. And I'm actually going to have engaged in the conversation when I hear that you are passionate about what you do. So I want you to encourage you as part of your marketing plan to go back and think about, why does our organization exist? And more importantly, if your team can actually think to themselves, why do each of us work here? At the end of the day, when we say, yeah, you know what, today was a really good day, what is it that we accomplished? What were we able to give somebody? And if you think about when you are out networking and building relationships with organizations or with potential learners, if you think my goal is to go out there and share my passion, rather than my goal is to go out there and get 3 new people to sign up for whatever session or whatever program, you are going to see a big change in people's connection to you. You're going to build relationships and relationships that are going to be lasting. If anybody has any comments about that particular video or any thoughts about what I just shared, go ahead and share them in the chat and Carrie will bring them out to us. I'm going to bring the video or the presentation back up. So the words that I would like you to remember from that is, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I want you to think about that regardless of whether you're building relationships or whether you're making flyers, because it really does apply. And a lot of times in marketing, we spend a lot of time doing the what you buy, and I want to describe the service, and I want to put all the important things that I think that this brings you. But if you can talk about why you do, you're likely to get people to actually read your flyer or engage in that conversation with you. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And I will also get, there is some work pages that go with the Golden Circle, and I'll make sure that Rita gets those so she can send them out to everybody as well. Hey, underrepresentation, what does it mean? I want to focus a little bit the rest of the presentation on thinking about, okay, so who are these groups that are not represented in your organization? Why do you want to go out and look for them? And how might you learn what you need to learn about them so that you can actually go out and attract them? A little similar to what I said earlier when we say, you know, you got to come for our services because it'll help you get the education that you want, or get into the school that you want to go to, or to help you get the job of your dreams. But not everybody necessarily wants the perfect job or wants to go to post-secondary education. That doesn't mean that they can't benefit from your services. And that is a potential reason that some people may be underrepresented. It's not the only reason. Some of them may want exactly and may fit exactly into the marketing that you're doing. You just haven't reached them yet, but some of them may get a very different value from the same service. And so underrepresentation, what we need to think about is when we're offering a service, and particularly a government type of service, we tend to think of, but what does the population in my community look like? And if it's 5% immigrants and 10% Aboriginal people and more women than men, or more youngsters than, so you want to think about in your client population, are you getting the representation that is in your community? So that percentage wise, that's definitely something to strive for, but always need to think about, it's okay if there's a group in our community that doesn't desire our services. Apple, who we talked about just recently, is not going to say, okay, are our customers representative of the population out there? They may think, hey, you know what, they aren't, and so we may need to develop a new product, or we may need to develop something different to help that new population, or if we want to really attract that new population. So you also may need to think in your organization, if you're really looking at attracting a particular segment of the population, you may need to make a new service, or you may need to make some changes to your service so that it actually accomplishes whatever it is that that particular group is looking for. So just a little bit in terms of underrepresentation. On the next slide, I'm going to ask you to use the annotation feature. So you should see where it says you are seeing Nancy's screen. There should be a drop-down menu there, and if you click on that, it should say annotate. So I'm going to give you guys a second to do so. And when you get the annotation features, you should have a text feature, you should have a draw feature. And I'm actually, maybe I'm just gonna, can you give me a thumbs up to let me know that you know what I'm talking about, that it works for you? There we go. Some people are doing it. They've got some hearts going. Go ahead on this slide here, just go and practice, click some different things. On the next slide, I'm just gonna ask you to pick a stamp. And I'm going to ask you to stamp next to the words that are important for your center. Good. So it looks like everybody's got that. I'm going to clear the slide. I'm going to ask everybody to just stop for a second until I pull to the next slide and give the instructions. So clear all drawing. I am going to go to the next slide, and then I'm going to share with you what I want you to do on that particular slide. So here are some groups that I was told that different organizations are wanting to try to attract. So I just want you to put a stamp of some kind, a heart, a check mark, whatever you like, next to those underrepresented groups that your organization is really trying to attract.
Nancy, can
Nancy,
you repeat the instructions?
Yeah, just go ahead and put a stamp or a check mark, anything that you want on any of those 5 boxes, on all of the 5 boxes, whichever group your particular organization are really looking at trying to attract. Which ones are underrepresented and which ones are you trying to attract? Okay, so it looks like women are not necessarily a category that you're trying to attract. Maybe they're not underrepresented, and that's okay if they aren't. It looks like there is a really significant amount of check marks and hearts and stars on the Indigenous peoples group. So we can talk a little bit about that as well. Some visible immigrants, some racialized people, and some young adults. I think definitely the Indigenous peoples group probably has the most on it. And then the next 3 are the visible immigrants, racialized people, and young adults, and women a little bit lighter on that side. So the things that we're going to talk about in the rest of the presentation are understanding that different groups of people communicate and build relationships in different ways and value different parts of relationships or value some kinds of relationships over others in different kinds of ways. So one of the things we're going to move into kind of talking about culture and talking a little bit about, you know, inclusivity and diversity in some way as well. But one of the things I always find is very important to share with people is that culture is very invisible. And we don't recognize, and when I taught in social work previously, I used to wear a sweater when I talked about this, and I would talk about, you know, taking off the sweater, and I didn't think to wear a sweater this morning so that I could do that for you. But the idea is it's very hard to take off our own culture. And so we look at the world and we say, when we think about our own culture, we think of things that are, you know, very, you know, traditional kinds of things. But we think that other things are fact and are not culture. And a lot of those things are culture. But because we've learned that culture accidentally, we've never been taught about it, we just think it's fact, and we think that it's the way that things should be, and that everybody should value the things that we value. But when you really start to think about, you know, what do I value and why do I value those things and what's important, then you're really starting to understand culture and to think about, how did I learn to value those things? So being able to think about the fact that what you see as important in education, or why you see those things as important in education, may not be what other people see as important in education, and what you value in relationships might not be what other people value in relationships. And how you approach people may be very different from how people like to be approached. I'm a very boisterous, loud, talk with my hands kind of person. And so when I'm going to a particular group, I start off slow and I say, you know what, I need to figure out how this group is and you know, where they want to go. And I need to adjust a little bit. Not that I'm being fake, but I need to adjust to be respectful, to understand what's important to the group that I'm sharing with. And so you need to be thinking about that as you're doing your relationship marketing as well. Okay, I'm just going to clear those annotations. There we go, clear. Okay, and I'm going to move to the next slide. Good. I am going to ask everyone to basically step out for a second and actually go and try an activity that helps you to understand a little bit about your culture, in a sense, some of the things that you were taught to value or you were thought were more important, taught to see as more important than other things. So what we're talking about is implicit bias. And the idea is implicit bias is bias that we're not aware of, but it is a way that our brain uses to filter information and to decide what we're going to share with who, and to decide what we're actually going to take in as truth and what we're going to kind of push aside. And this type of activity really lets you kind of understand what some of your automatic thoughts are and where you might be missing the opportunity to understand somebody better. Some people are actually trying to go and click on that. You can't click on it, but I am going to stop sharing. I'm going to open it, and I am actually going to, as soon as I do that, I am going to share the link in the chat feature so that you can go and open it. Just give me a second here to find it over here. And Project Implicit. Can you just give me a thumbs up to show me that you actually see the screen Project Implicit and not still the video that we were looking at before? Good. Okay. So I am just going to copy this link and share it. I meant to do this before we started. I got to go back to the chat feature, and I'm going to share the link here in the chat feature. So you should be able to just go and click on that. I want to give people probably about 5 minutes or so. You're probably not going to get through the whole thing, but I want you to register so that you can get into, you can pick whichever one you want. There are a lot of different choices. Make sure that you do put Canada there so that you're getting things that reflect and understand some of the biases that we might have, and just go give it a little try. So we'll return. It's 9:45 now. We'll return about. I'm going to give you 7 minutes. We'll return at 9:52. Just go give it a little bit of a try. And again, you'll receive that link again later so that you can try it and you can share it with other group members. So it is now 9:53 because I spoke for a minute to myself. So if everybody wants to come back and join us, you can keep that site open in the background in case you want to go and continue, because chances are you aren't finished, or you might want to even go and do a second or third one because there are a lot of different options. What would you like to share about that experience? You can go ahead and share in the chat, or if you want to share out loud, you can go ahead and do that as well. Maybe I'll just share a little bit of an experience. The first time I actually did that activity, I went, oh my God, I didn't think I was racist. I didn't think I was biased. And look what's happening. It was probably a long time ago. I want to say it was that project had just started to open. They were just collecting data and still developing the different projects. But it is one thing that I realized and continued to carry with me throughout all my career, and through any presentation where I'm talking about diversity, is we didn't learn these things on purpose. And we don't do them on purpose, but we do have these implicit biases. And if we learn about these implicit biases and we try to do something about it, then we can say, you know what, I'm working towards making sure that I am not racist or any other ism, as I like to call them, whether it's feminism or whether it's something about a different culture, a different religion, about a different language, whatever it is. When you realize that you learned through your culture not to be bad or negative towards other people, but you learn to favor different things that were important to you. And so learning about those implicit biases is probably a really good start, particularly to see if you have a bias against a group that you might be trying to attract. And that bias may not necessarily be a good thing or a bad thing, but it may impact how you communicate with that group in a way that is not helpful to what you're trying to achieve. So let me just go through a couple of points that people shared. Even just doing the category questions ahead of doing the assessment was eye-opening of my own privilege. I didn't like categorizing color with good or bad. On Netflix, there's a new show, 100 Humans. Yes, my children were just telling me about that, which tackles these kinds of hidden biases. Somebody brought up the word privilege, and definitely those of us who experience privilege because of the color of our skin, because of the language that we speak, or whatever reasons we experience privilege, it is uncomfortable to go and do these and to realize that we aren't necessarily who we thought we were, or we aren't as good as we would like to think that we are. That doesn't make you a bad person. In fact, that makes you a person who is ready to learn and experience, and hey, I want to learn about what these implicit biases are that I have because I want to overcome them. So it might feel yucky as you are learning them, or as you are trying to overcome them, or learning about what they are. But learning about what they are will help you to move forward in not having those implicit biases, or making sure that, hey, you know what, when I am questioning, I am doing something good, and I can only question because I've learned something. So I encourage you to share that with others in your organization, share it with friends and family, and but really think about particularly, how does that help me in my marketing towards another group? How does it impact my building of relationships with people who are different from me? And also, just one more piece on the kind of, it makes me feel bad when I do these kinds of things. Our brain is hardwired in a way to protect us. And our families around us did the best that they could to try and teach us to stay away from what they thought would hurt us. And so it doesn't make us a bad person that we're doing that, that we have these biases, or that we see different groups in different ways. It's the way our minds work. Our minds are built to categorize things and to quickly decide if something's going to be good for me or if something's going to be bad for me. And so we actually need to learn to overcome some of those natural things that our brain wants to do automatically. Okay, reading the book Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, The Subconscious Mind is discussed. Okay, good. Okay, let me go back into sharing the slides. We're going to get into a breakout activity in just a couple of minutes. So again, I'll make sure that you have that link if you did shut it down. Why did I have you do that activity? Well, we don't know what we don't know, and we need to be able to figure out, how do I go and learn about what it is that I don't know? We have things that we know, we have things that we know we don't know, but then we have things that we don't know that we don't know. And that danger zone, that is the danger zone when we don't know what we don't know. And so in terms of underrepresented groups, I think what we need to recognize is there are a lot of things we don't know, and we need to go and look at, what do I need to learn? And I'm not sure what I need to learn. And so going out there and doing activities that help us to figure out, what don't I know that I don't know is important for me to know. Okay, we are going to do a little bit of a breakout session. Carrie's going to put you into groups for 5 minutes in just once I'm finished giving the instructions. What I want you to do is to talk about with each other, talk about what some of your thoughts are about why certain groups are not seeking your services. And what do you need to know about their wants and needs, and how might you go about finding out those wants and needs? Okay, any questions before we jump into the breakout room? So you're talking about, what are the underrepresented groups in your organization, and what do you need to learn about those groups so that you can really go out and attract them through relationship marketing? Good. I don't see any questions, Carrie, so go ahead and send them into their groups, and we'll see you in 5 minutes.
This meeting is
Hey,
being
welcome back, everyone. I hope that you had some great discussions in the breakout rooms. The one thing about the breakout rooms is that we get richer conversations because we're only talking with about 4 or 5 other people, but not everybody gets the value of every conversation. And in the recording, those who weren't actually present don't get any value from that breakout session. So I would like you to think, particularly for memory's sake and for sharing amongst other groups, we don't have the time to be able to take 10 minutes now and to share the different groups. But if there was something particularly interesting that came out of your conversations in your breakout room, put it in the chat. That way everybody gets the experience, gets the value of the experience, and you won't forget what it is, because you'll be able to save that chat at the end, and that reminder will be there. So let me pull open the slides again. Okay, good. Here we go. I want to ask you, what do you see? Write it in the chat. What do you see? Good. So some people only saw one thing. Some people saw 2 things. Somebody saw something totally that I haven't seen, so I might get them to explain what they saw. So some people shared that they saw a rabbit. Some people shared that they saw a duck. Some people shared that they saw both. Hey, and if you saw a duck first, I want you to try and look at, so if you saw a duck first, I'm not going to actually show what it is. If you saw a duck first, I want you to actually go and be able to look at and see a rabbit. And if you saw a rabbit, I want you to go and try and see the duck. And when you're able to see both, just give me a, well, go in the chat and just give me a, I don't know, click a number 2. So you're able to see both. When you're able to see both, just go and give me a number 2. Good. Most of you are now able to see a number 2. So what I want to tell you about this picture is that what you see is based somewhat on your previous experience. It is based somewhat on the context. And so if this particular picture, if underneath it, or if it was on a storybook, and the storybook was called The Ugly Duckling, or it was called Duck Hunting in the Fall, all of you would have seen a duck. If instead it was on a book cover and it was, Peter Cottontail, or it was a Happy Easter something, all of you would have seen a bunny. And why do I bring this up in this kind of a presentation? The idea is because what we see, what we hear, what we understand is based on our understanding of the environment, our understanding of the context, and our previous experience. And so we can think that we are being very clear with information to somebody else, and they can hear something totally different. And when we're doing relationship marketing, we need to be able to think about that. Is the information I am giving being interpreted in the way that I want it to be interpreted? Is it even able to be interpreted in the way that I want it to be interpreted? So I'm hoping that activity just gives you a little bit of a sense of we can all look at the same thing and not actually see the same thing, because a lot of people just wrote bunny and a lot of people just wrote duck. Everybody was able to see it afterwards. So once I gave that explanation, I gave the context and shared that experience, we were able to understand and see the same kind of thing, see what the other person was seeing. I also want to bring one other thing to your attention. It doesn't fit so much with the presentation, but it's always something that I like to do. If you saw a bunny first and I told you to go look for a duck, I want you to realize that you could still go back and see a bunny. And so in our context, when we're trying to understand somebody else's culture, lots of times there is this pushback that if I go and understand your culture, somehow that lessens my culture. And I want you to think about the fact that you could still go back and see a duck even when I made you see a bunny. So just being able to recognize somebody else's culture, it does change the way that you look at your culture, but it doesn't invalidate your culture or your way of thinking or the things that are important to you or the things that you value, just because you go and understand and see the values or the way somebody else sees the world. You can still return back to seeing your world, but being able to do that flip-flop. And if you just look at this picture and go, okay, I'm just going to look at that picture and go, okay, duck, okay, bunny, okay, duck. And you can do that and think about how you can do that in your conversations, how you can feel like, okay, I'm not being fake by recognizing somebody else's culture, and I'm not being untrue to myself by recognizing somebody else's culture. And I don't have to be afraid of recognizing and accepting the way that somebody else might do something differently, because it doesn't in the long term impact my ability to still do the things that I think are important and that I value. Okay, so different groups communicate differently. I want you to think about the fact that, again, the way that we communicate in Ontario, the way we communicate in Canada or in North America is cultural. We tend to think it is right. I am supposed to look somebody in the eyes. I am supposed to get down to business, and I am supposed to shake hands with people. I am supposed to dress in a certain way, but all of those things are cultural. They're things that we've learned about the way that we communicate with others, but they are not right or wrong. What I've done here on this slide is give you a little information about the fact that there is a different context that comes with different language, different backgrounds, different cultures and different ethnicities. Euro-Canadian, North American, mainstream culture, we tend to be low context. Most of the information is verbally explicit. We tell people everything. We don't expect people to kind of fill in the blanks. Information is repeated to ensure everybody understands it, and the responsibility for communication lies with the speaker. But in high context kinds of cultures like traditional Native Canadian, Asian, Latin American cultures, the context is considered high context. Communication is less explicit. There's a lot more opportunity for people to interpret, less words, interpret from your perspective and understand based a lot more on the nonverbal and other pieces of the other ways of communication. There's a lot of emphasis on what is left unspoken and more responsibility on the listener to hear and to interpret, and more need for silence, longer pauses, the opportunity to give people the opportunity to think about things. And again, here we're talking stereotypes because I put people in a little box. This is your background, this is the culture, this is where you live. And so you're dark blue, and the opposite, you're here, you live there, and this is your background, so I put you in the blue. But there is definitely, those boxes could definitely overlap, and there could be somebody who is Euro-Canadian who is very high context, and some people who are in the blue in terms of the cultures, but really fit in the dark blue as well. So but I want you to start there when you need to think about, okay, you know what, a lot of you talked about refugees and talked about immigrants, and so learning, you know, is that culture, does it tend to be low context where I don't have to do a lot of thinking, I can just be me? Or is it high context where I might need to think outside the box in terms of how I communicate with the particular group? Always remembering that the person, just because they come from there, doesn't necessarily mean that they meet that stereotype. They may be different, but starting at that stereotype and then recognizing how people react to what it is that you're sharing can help you then make the adjustments that you need to make. Similarly, we have two different types of cultures: individualistic cultures and collectivistic cultures. And I'm just realizing here that I didn't identify the cultures, but typically in North America, we tend to be an individualistic. We focus on I. We have a goal of autonomy. We value things like personal choice. We emphasize goals that focus on individual preferences, rights, and pleasure. And we have a universalistic approach. The same values apply to all. And I want you to think about that is how we describe education in North America, in Ontario. We think about this is why you should want education, and you should want education for yourself, and I is important, and this is going to bring you so much opportunities to have to bring yourself up to higher value and to get what you want. But on the opposite side, in the collectivism side, the cultures that value collectivism over individualism focus on we, promote relatedness and interdependence. And a lot of times when we talk about education, we say you won't have to be dependent on others. You'll be able to be more independent. And so we're actually contradicting a value of a collectivism type of society. Values of connection to family, respect and obedience may be very different in collectivism versus individualism, and a pluralistic approach on this side, different values and standards of members of in-groups and out-groups, and applying things very differently. So again, being able to think about who am I marketing to? What is the value of my service to them? If I'm promoting a service to a group that is collectivist, and I'm emphasizing all these individualistic values, they're not going to buy into what it is that I want to give them. But if they recognize my why and the fact that I want to help people get what they want out of life, then I might be able to encourage them or get them to want to come and work with me. Any comments, questions, thoughts on any of that? Okay, we will jump right into the next slide then. Let's throw people, Carrie, let's throw people back into groups. Maybe if people, I don't know if you have your smartphone next to you, if you can take a screenshot of this, but this is what I'd like you to discuss. We're just going to give you about, well, actually, I'm not just about. No, I have too many slides. Okay, no, let's not do the groups, Carrie. Sorry, guys. I was thinking I didn't have much slides left, but I do have more things I want to talk about. So maybe just do this with your coworkers and think about, what does making eye contact, or what does not making eye contact mean to me? And what might it mean to somebody else? What does often is that saying yes mean to me? What might it mean to somebody else? And just talk about how different people might have different views of these different kinds of things. And there are some pieces in there that are cultural. There are some pieces that are collectivism versus individualism, and some things that are just different preference. So have do some reflection on that, or maybe have a chat with some of your coworkers. Same thing with this slide. So cross-cultural communication, and by culture, I don't always mean ethnicity. I mean, any group of people has a different culture. So a group of school teachers has a culture, a group of nurses has a culture. Those people who speak a particular language have a different culture. Those people who belong to a group, every group has a different culture. So it might be a swim club, it might be a biking club, it might be a hockey team, all of those have culture. But if you think to yourself, what we understand. Even workplaces obviously have a culture. That's a big part of the work that I do with different organizations, but we have different understandings. And Rita and I had an interesting conversation about this when I showed her the slide too. And she's like, yeah, really? I never thought that we all have different idea of what the word soon means. And for some people, it means in a few minutes. For some people, it means later. And for some people, it means when I feel like it. So being able to think about our language and what it means to different people is important when we're building relationships. Obviously, there is a huge non-verbal component to communication. It's about 93% of what people understand comes from the non-verbal rather than the verbal. So here's just an example of a symbol and what it means in different cultures. So in the US, it tends to be interpreted as okay. In Japan, it is a sign for dollars or money. In Russia, it means zero. And in Brazil, apparently, it is an offensive insult. So being able to there think about who's my audience? How are they reacting to me? Am I building a relationship with them? What am I getting from their nonverbal that tells me I'm going in the wrong direction in terms of being able to build a relationship? So just some things to think about as you move forward. This is a slide that was shared with me in a diversity presentation that I went to about a year ago. And I thought, I think it kind of fits here. So diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. And so what I really want you to recognize here is that in your relationship marketing, particularly when you're going out and trying to get those underrepresented people to attend your organization, that diversity is a fact. If you can get them in the door, absolutely. But just because you can get them in the door, that doesn't mean inclusion. And if you are really building relationships with them and willing to make changes to what you have to offer so that it is of more value to them, then you are really included. And if they are included, that's when they will come, not just because they are invited. Another slide from that same presentation that I thought was of value to share with you. So inequality, if you see in the first part of that picture, all the apples are on one side of the tree and the other side of the tree doesn't have very many apples, and the apples leaning to one side. That's inequality. What we think of as equality is give everybody the same tools. Obviously on this side, the little girl on the left, what her ladder allows her to reach the apples, but the apples on the other side, the same ladder does not allow that person to reach those apples. Equity, we give the person on the right a longer ladder because the apples are further away. But justice, we really work at making the same things available to everybody. And if you see in that last one, what we've done is straightened the tree so that both only need the same kind of ladder. And somehow we've encouraged apples to grow on the other side of the tree as well. But justice could be, bringing everybody to the same side of the tree, or sharing that space more equally in some ways, whatever way we can. So thinking about that in terms of your relationship marketing is also very important. Am I giving the groups that are underrepresented? Is it just a matter of inviting them and they will come, or do I need to make some changes to my products, to my service, to the way I offer things, so that they really will feel included and it really will give them what they need and not what I think they need? Okay, just a couple of things as we wrap up. Obviously, relationship building is networking. Where do you need to go? And how are you going to do that networking? I'm going to repeat some of the things that I said really early on when we were talking about kind of the different categories that were on that checklist. So look at what's going on in your community. Think about who the people are that you are trying to let know about your services. Find out where they tend to be going and be there, be present. And how? Well, not like a car salesman, but more like a person who just wants to get to know the needs of other people so that they can make a service that is going to be helpful to people. So you're just going out there, you're talking, and you're sharing your passion for learning, your passion for giving people new tools and new skills to use in whatever way they want to use them. Thoughts or comments there that anybody wants to share? Good. I threw this slide in thinking that I would forget to talk about this, but we already talked about it and the answers are already in our chat from our earlier conversations. So just remember that you need partners, and the groups that you are trying to attract to attend at your services are already out there in the community with other connections. And if you can make connections with their connections, and if those groups trust you, they will give you access to their clients, to the people that they work with, people who are parts of those organizations or people who are parts of those teams or groups. And if you make those partnerships win-win, then you are much more able to attract the segments of the population that you want to attract. And those partners will be good as well at helping you learn what you need to know about the particular group that you are trying to attract. Okay, so we're wrapping up pretty well on time. I thought that this was a wonderful quote to end with, recognizing everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid. I think that recognition in anything having to do with education, one of the pieces that I want to leave you with is that not everybody values education for the same reasons, and not everybody values the same parts of education. And so when you are looking at who are those underrepresented groups, I really want you to think about the fact of helping them to get what it is that they need or they want to have the life that they want to live, and not thinking about what we believe they need to have the life that we believe they should have. So I'm going to leave you with that. At the end of the slides, I've just given you a little bit more information about me. Actually, I ended up putting the same paragraphs, I think, that Rita read at the beginning. But I am more than happy to chat with people. We have about 6 minutes left, so I'm happy to have some conversations and answer any questions. And if anybody'd like to chat with me afterwards, you're more than welcome to send me an email or give me a call. And if you're looking for any other presentations for your particular organization, or if you want somebody to brainstorm ideas with you about, how do we make this a reality in our particular community, I do work all across Ontario. So happy to have some conversations with you by video if you aren't in Timmins, and happy to have some conversations in person with you if you are from the area.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That was excellent. So many takeaways. I enjoyed how you talked about adapting our message and really thinking about who it is that we want to attract, and how and why, especially, and how they can benefit from our services. And of course, the illustration of the bunny and the duck, and like the meaning of the golden circle. There's so much more, but so thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for being here with us today. As always, we do have an evaluation. I'm going to ask Carrie to put that link in the chat. We'd really appreciate it if you would fill it out. It's short, I promise. And now for the draw that I mentioned earlier, we will draw 2 winners. So it'll just be the first 2 that type in the correct answer. And the question, whoops, I was going to put it in the chat as well. The question is, when is Family Literacy Day? So the first 2 who get that answer correctly will win a Chapters gift card. Okay, I believe we already have 2 people. Whoops, I gotta back up. Tracy Pound and Krista Porter. Just getting your names down here. So you are the winners, and I will be in touch. I also wanted to mention there is a part 3 to this series on marketing. It's coming up on February 2nd. The topic will be social media marketing. More info and the registration link will be sent out later this fall, so be sure to join us for that one as well. We also have a special event with Matthew Dix. He is leading a full-day storytelling workshop on March 2nd with the theme Share Your Passion for LBS, that's literacy and basic skills, through story, and people will hear your message. So details about that will come soon as well. So take care, have a great day.
That fits perfectly with the why we talked about. Share your passion and they will come. Excellent.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.